All right, so this is a little bit more practical of a note. I'm not too sure why they didn't draw the lines here, but I'm just going to take it upon myself and draw them. Try and make them the same size. That's pretty good. This is meant to be a transformer, so I think we should have those lines there. But it's important to note that these coils, right, they're wire. And wire, of course, as you remember, no matter whether it's coiled or not, it is still wire. And it still has an associated cross-sectional area, right? Still has an associated length. And of course, if we coil a wire more and more coils means that there is more and more length. And it's going to have some resistivity, rho, right? And we know that the resistance of our wire is equal to rho times the length divided by the area. And the resistivity obviously depends on the type of material that we're using. Typically, these wires will be copper, but the significance here is that this L is not negligible for most transformers, right? We sometimes are using transformers that have hundreds of turns, some probably thousands of turns on one or the other of the coils, and that's not negligible. If we have a substantial amount of turns, we can get a substantial resistance in those wires. And so instead of just representing our transformer as just a coil coupled to another coil driving a load, we typically have to represent our transformer using some series resistance, which is what they're doing here. So they're basically modeling that resistance of the wire in our coil as a resistance in series with the coil. Okay, so R1 and R2 here are practical resistances that arise from the number of turns that you have in a particular coil. Okay, and it's important too to note that this is necessary for LT Spice as well. In LT Spice, I'm pretty sure if you try to just take a source and put it directly across an inductor, it'll tell you that there's an overdefined matrix or something saying that you can't connect a voltage source directly to an inductor or something to that nature. Maybe that's only in newer versions, or maybe it's only in older versions, but I've seen it before. And so they're going to always expect you to put some kind of series resistance into the circuit so that LT Spice is happy. Okay, and so it's practical to note that that's the case. If you would rather call this R winding or R of L1, that's totally fine. But just note that that is a real resistance that is modeled as a series resistance with this ideal inductor. Of course, by itself, L1 is an ideal inductor and has no resistance. But when we add a series resistance to it, this now could be represented as a single impedance, which would have an impedance R plus J omega L, and that incorporates that parasitic resistance in there. Okay, so that's an important concept. So get used to seeing some of these non-ideal transformer circuits are going to have series resistance, and we're just going to have to deal with it the same way we've been dealing with it all along, and that's by basically accounting for this this mutual inductance and going about our business the same way we have, modeling the dependent sources and all that good stuff. And we'll do that in the next video because we're going to basically take a look at the input impedance of the transformer, which is basically the impedance that this source sees. So the source doesn't necessarily know what circuit's here. It just sees some equivalent impedance. And we can determine what that impedance is by determining the voltage, the ratio of the voltage of the source to this current I1, because V over I gives us an impedance, right? And so that impedance, V over I, Vs over I1 in particular, because that's the voltage of the source and the current out of the source, if we take the ratio of those, we get what's called the input impedance of the circuit. And so we're going to determine what that looks like for a transformer, a non-ideal transformer with these winding resistances in the next video. All right, so I'm going to end this video right here, and we'll see you guys in the next one.